Good morning or good afternoon. Welcome to this LinkedIn live event on personal leadership and agency. In this series, I'm making the case that leadership requires personal leadership and agency. Now, I think it always has, but in the past, we could get away with hacks or techniques, shortcuts, expedient processes. In today's world, the shelf life of an expedient process or solution, in my opinion, is very short. Agency gives us the ability to make our decisions based on principles instead of what feels right or what made sense in the past. The benefit of making decisions based on principles is that wherever you find yourself at the next milestone, it'll be the right launching pad for what's next. It's capitalizing on that flywheel turn that's talked about in Good to Great. When you're turning that flywheel and you come in every day, you give that flywheel a good turn and you're turning it, you're constantly moving deeper and deeper into that same direction. When you start chasing expedient solutions and quick fixes and hacks, you're going all over the place, and that's distracting you from doing that important thing. And I'll talk about that in the context of SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. Now, sure, the same thing can happen by luck. But if you're using hacks and shortcuts to solve real problems, you aren't building a foundation. You're building a reactionary culture that may never be able to put in the time and effort to right that ship. Now, where we left off last week provides a good example. I was talking about metaphors that people bring to the workplace, both leaders and workers. And then what exacerbates that even further is sometimes we use that metaphor like somebody might say, oh yeah, we're just one big happy family. I mentioned the family metaphor, and I bring that one up often. It's more common in small businesses, but it can exist in large companies as well. But the family metaphor, in my opinion, is one of the most problematic ones because it gets results through a faulty methodology. You end up with the patriarch or matriarch, you end up with favoritism, you have this, let's make the leader, the owner happy, decisions are made based on that. And it just creates a lot of problems. And also, if you think about with these metaphors, if you think about how do people get into it, into the organization, and you're using a family metaphor, well, they're born in or they're married in. How do you deal with poor performance? Well, in a family metaphor, you really don't. You just exclude them from certain things, but you tolerate them. How do you deselect a person from a family? Yeah, you really don't. You maybe disown them, but they're still off to the side. They're still a drain on the organization. Nothing against families in doing that, but in an organization, is that really what you want to do? You want to cut your losses, and I like to think about cutting things with a very sharp blade rather than beating it to death with the blunt object. So again, this is more about the organization and not a commentary on families. The other one is the political metaphor. This is was really common, I think, in the manufacturing days, but also in companies with product lines. They may not intend it to be that way, but it forms that way, and it makes sense, right? You're watching the news and you're seeing political things play out on the news, and they're calling themselves leaders. It's natural to take on some of that persona. But in the political metaphor, you have multiple camps competing for best in class. And those camps compete against each other, and you start getting silos. We get silos anyway, but this side won't talk to that side, and you start holding back information.